Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from in the world. We welcome you to this very special event. It's the current state of tourism in Portugal. My name is Sheree Mitchell. I am the president and founder of Immersa Global. I'm also a member of the American Club of Lisbon, and I'll be your co-host for this evening. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all. We're talking about a very important topic, not just for the national economy of Portugal, but for the world. And also in celebration of wine tourism in Portugal, which is a very interesting, new and exciting product that we're seeing talked about, communicated around the world. I'd like to make sure that you all have time to get your wine glasses or your bottles of wine to have with you, as we will pretty soon have a toast to tourism in general, to wine tourism, and to this event. So if you haven't had a chance to get your wine glasses, please go get those now. In the meantime, I'm going to give you some nuts and bolts on how this event's going to work. You have a chat feature that we will use for just general comments. If you'd like to share comments with the audience at large about the content that's being shared at the moment. I'd also encourage you all to share the wine that you are enjoying during the event, in the chat box as well. That's a little bit of a selfish request on my part. I'm always looking to learn more about new wines, specifically Portuguese wines. And so if you could just leave us the name of what you're enjoying, that would be great. Let's leave the Q&A feature that you should probably see on the right-hand side of the Zoom feature for questions and answers. We will have time dedicated specifically for this at the end of the event. When you submit your questions, please make sure that you let us know who you'd like to answer the question. We have 5 different speakers this afternoon, so please let us know specifically who your question is addressed to. And with that, I'd like to give you a little bit of information of how this event came about. The American Club of Lisbon was very gracious to invite me to organize an event on one of my favorite topics, tourism. And I said this would be the perfect opportunity to get some of Portugal's thought leaders and also colleagues of mine that I admire and respect greatly on the same call. So we were very fortunate to have everyone say, yes, I'd love to be a part of this without having to pull legs or bribe anyone. Everyone joined immediately and they were happy. The president of the American Club of Lisbon, Patrick Thorpe, also agreed with the topics and the speakers, as well as the executive director of the American Club of Lisbon, Ann Taylor. So with that said, it is now time for us to grab our glasses and toast to Portugal, toast to wine tourism in Portugal. We look forward to being able to enjoying these products soon. And I'm so happy that you all are here. Welcome in Saúde. I'd like to now pass the floor over to Patrick Thorpe, the president of the American Club of Lisbon.
Thank you so much, Sheree, and thank you and welcome everyone. Thank you to our speakers, outstanding group of speakers that we have today that I will have the honor of introducing on this American Club of Lisbon Live Talk. We have reached out to our members to survey subjects of interest for live talks. This is our 3rd session. And travel and tourism, which as many of you know, represents nearly 20% of the GNP of Portugal and has been one of the fastest growing sectors of the economy, was one of the subjects that generated the most enthusiasm. So we are proud to present to you, my co-host Sheree and Mitchell and I, this session which we've entitled The Current and Future State of Tourism in Portugal. So let's get started. I'm privileged to introduce our first speaker, an outstanding business person and a personal friend, Sheree Mitchell. Sheree is the founder and president of Immersa Global, an upscale destination management company that specializes in curating exclusive travel programs and small meetings for discerning American clients in Portugal. Immersa Global was recently awarded, and you must be very proud, the most unique culinary tour operator of the year by Lux magazine. Sheree's passion for designing travel was first discovered in graduate school when her university professors challenged her to design a study program in Central America. And since then, she has successfully curated and executed group travel to Spain, France, Portugal, Costa Rica, and Miami, Florida. Sheree has traveled to 40 countries, lived on 3 continents, speaks 4 languages, holds 2 bachelor's and a master's degree, and she is without doubt a thought leader in the highly curated travel as well as in extended solo travel. With 15 years of experience in these areas, she speaks regularly at industry conferences throughout the US and Europe. Most recently, and very interestingly, Sheree has spearheaded projects that she has innovated to use tourism as a vehicle to connect cities in her native Florida with cities in Portugal. In addition, my co-host Sheree Mitchell is a talented organizer of events, as exemplified by her having generously organized this live talk. So I'm honored to introduce Sheree Mitchell as our first speaker. She's entitled her talk, Travel in the New Normal, Reflections from an Upscale Tour Operator in Portugal.
Thank you. So we'll now get the presentation up. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Yes, perfect, great. Actually, here we are. Okay. So really quickly, I'd just like to give you, after that very kind and generous introduction, thank you, Patrick, I'd like to give you a quick overview of what we'll talk about over the next 10 minutes. A brief overview of Immersa Global to provide the context for the types of products that we create and the clients that we work with, consumer sentiment observations, and the Restart Travel Cross-Country Road Trip project. So if you were to visit us online, you would find our homepage like this. We offer very unique, exclusive, tailor-made programs, travel programs for discerning American clients. And we work with group sizes between 1 to 18 persons. We provide single day or multi-day programs, whatever the clients need. The main 4 that we usually curate are culinary tourism, cultural tourism, art-based tourism, faith-based tourism. Prior to COVID, we defined the new luxury as the ability to enjoy a curated experience without ever thinking about the logistics. And this speaks to the types of clients or the clients' needs that we have. Our clients usually do not have a lot of vacation time. There's a cultural difference, as we know, between how vacation is approached in the US and Europe. So when they do travel, they just want to be pampered and taken care of, and they don't want to worry about anything. Everything just kind of happens for them, and they get to enjoy quality time with friends or family or by themselves. If you'd like to learn more about Immersa Global, I definitely welcome you all to visit our website, or you could also watch our Portugal promotion video that's titled Welcome Home to Portugal. You can find that on YouTube. So now we'll go into some consumer sentiment observations. You guys know that this pandemic situation has been very dynamic and is constantly changing. So some of the information that we've gotten from the most recent consumer sentiment studies allow us to understand there are 5 different stages to travel recovery. There's decline, plateau, emerge, domestic, and international. The decline with regards to Portugal and most of Europe was around March, when we saw borders shutting down and closing and trips being canceled, and literally travelers around the world, in some cases, stranded and trying to find their ways back home. Plateau around April, the beginning of May, when everyone's main priority was to flatten the curve and stay inside. And so there we saw very little travel. The main travel that we saw happening at that time was the repatriation flights back to persons' home countries. We're now in the emerge phase, where as the crisis begins to pass, of course, we're still dealing with the virus itself, but as we are learning to live with it in such a way that we have, the lockdown restrictions begin to ease and people begin to venture out again. Local restaurants and businesses are starting to open up slowly and carefully, and we are starting to patronize them again. So we're somewhere between numbers 3 and 4 in the US. We have different markets that are opening up on different timelines. We have markets that are opening and then having to close again, unfortunately, when they're dealing with resurgence of the virus. But one thing that we're starting to see is an uptick in domestic travel within the United States. People are now discovering what we call the drive market. And so they, instead of flying to different destinations within the US, they are discovering what's nearby, what may be 2 or 3 or 4 hours nearby their homes. International travel obviously would be the last phase of this process, and we're not seeing that happen nearly the scale that we used to have before. When we look at our travel consumers, we can break them down into 4 basic groups. We have the people who are ready to travel right now. If they could come to Portugal tomorrow, they would. We have those who are willing to consider traveling soon. We have those who will travel domestically only until there's a vaccine. And then we have those who will not leave their homes until there's a cure. We're going to focus right now on these first 2. So some of the concerns about travel during COVID, even with the 2 groups that I mentioned who are a little bit more open and willing to travel, are within this pyramid here. We have the airport experience, which is still considered a very scary experience. There's not a lot of consistency as to how the pandemic is being managed in different airport markets throughout the US. And so you don't know if airport in this city is not. So that's a bit of a concern, as well as the in-flight experience. If you guys are following what's going on with some of the airlines in the US, you see that we're seeing inconsistency amongst their regulations and standards as to how they're going to approach clients or travelers who are not willing to wear masks or visors. Some airlines have an absolute no-fly, no-go policy, and others have not yet adopted that. The lodging is also a point of concern for obvious reasons, and this is actually once the clients are in destination. We're seeing an uptick in interest in people renting out villas and country homes and farm homes in more remote areas, and we're able to follow this trend, or what we believe is going to be a new trend, by the information gathered through online tour operators, online travel agencies such as TripAdvisor and Orbitz, and things of this nature. The restaurants and food and beverage experience is also of concern for obvious reasons. Many people are now considering either hiring chefs to come and service their villas and farm homes for their multi-generational travel programs, if they were to go that route, or maybe even cooking themselves in destination. Ground transportation is also a concern, and we are probably going to see a trend where people are wanting to rent cars and have complete control over their transportation versus needing to use Uber to get around a city, or even have a private driver. And definitely there would be concern with using public transportation. And I also believe that tours and activities may see a decrease in demand, because the idea of being in a group tour with people who are not within your quarantine bubble or your quarantine group would be a little disconcerting right now. So with that information of what are some of the concerns, what are some of the questions that we've gotten at Immersa Global regarding travel, I created this idea. Actually, it was born out of many different components kind of converging at the same time. That's called the Restart Travel Cross-Country Road Trip Project, if you will. And it's basically a 2-week cross-country road trip within Portugal, where I get to discover what the new normal of travel is through the eyes of a foreign tour operator and also a foreign visitor. This information will be conveyed through Travel Weekly, which is the largest B2B publication in our industry in the United States. And we've had really strong support from Visit Portugal, or Turismo Portugal, to put this program together, as well as Immersa Global. So some of the questions that I considered first when thinking about what are the answers, or what's the information I'd like to provide for people back in the US, specifically my colleagues and travel professionals in travel media in the US. How does the Safe and Clean program actually work? We're hearing a lot about Safe and Clean, and the concept is wonderful, but we need to know how it works so that we're able to provide that information to potential travel consumers in the near future. Also, how are the tourism products in the more remote areas of Portugal, which is something that I alluded to earlier, the villas and farm homes? Are there other travelers respectful of, or other travelers respectful of the new health and sanitation rules, which of course would be really important to understand, you know, who might you be in contact with, and how are they managing the clean and safe protocols? How has upscale travel been affected by the new low-touch protocols? And we're actually going to hear more about that in a couple of minutes from one of our speakers. And is it fun or stressful to travel right now? Which is a very important question. Why even bother? Are you able to still enjoy yourself even after having to abide by, or while you're abiding by all of these new strict protocols? And the most important question, which pretty much sums it all up, is Portugal ready to receive American tourists? I already have my preliminary observations and responses and answers to those questions. So once again, it's a 2-week road trip. I've already completed the first 5 days. I started on July the 23rd in the Algarve, and I completed the Alentejo component yesterday, or today actually, excuse me. And then tomorrow I'll start northern Portugal and then end in central Portugal. And some of the images that we've gotten so far, you know, you see the clean and safe seal on the doors as you're entering into your hotel room to just reassure the client that everything's been done properly. Tour guides wearing masks, everyone wearing masks. In restaurants, of course, you know, having some of the differences that you're noticing is that even with the high touch and the beautiful things we used to enjoy, such as the tablecloths and the waiters coming around, they're still finding a way to provide that luxury upscale service without impeding in your space and by observing the safe and clean, or the clean and safe protocol and standards. And a couple of other things. Some of the hotels are providing masks and hand sanitizer as welcome gifts when you come in. And in a lot of the restaurants, you're using the QR codes instead of physical menus. So if you're interested in following along the road trip, the Restart Travel road trip, please find us here at this website, and you can sign up for our newsletter and be the first to receive the latest on what's going on. I'll also be presenting, I was invited to present this project at the Global Travel Meet conference on August the 9th. This will be the first international conference where I'll be discussing what happened during the road trip. And the title of the speech is, Did Portugal Get It Right? What I Learned After a 14-Day Cross-Country Road Trip in the New Normal. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me here on LinkedIn, or you can email me. I'm very approachable. And with that, I'd like to pass the floor back to Patrick, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Sheree. Very introducing us to the new normal of travel, and how one innovative and creative manager of a travel company is dealing with this new situation. I'm delighted to introduce our second speaker, who will bring a different perspective to the table. The second speaker, who is a friend of mine and also of the American Club of Lisbon, Thierry Henrot. Thierry has occupied the position of General Manager of the Sheraton Lisbon Hotel and Spa since June of 2019. Thierry, who is French, has had a 20-year international career in the Starwood Hotels and Resorts Group, which is now Marriott International. He began his career in the Sheraton Group in 2001 as food and beverage manager of the Sheraton in Porto Alegre in Brazil. After 5 years there, he went on to handle food and beverage at the Sheraton Barra in Rio de Janeiro. In 2007, he began his first stint in Portugal, and I presume that's when you first fell in love with Portugal, Thierry, Indeed. Where you held the position of Director in Food and Beverages at the Sheraton in Porto. He was subsequently promoted to Executive Assistant to the Director General at the Sheraton in Lisbon, already tasting what will be his future job, a position he occupied for 2 years, beginning in 2009, when he returned in 2011 to Paris, where he worked at Le Méridien Étoile as hotel manager of this 1,025-room hotel, the largest in France, I believe, followed by a stint as general manager at the Sheraton Skyline Hotel at London Heathrow Airport. So another very different kind of hotel experience. Bringing to bear his outstanding experience in the luxury hotel market, we are honored to have you, Thierry, as one of our guest speakers. You have chosen as your subject, redefining luxury, how high-touch hotels are responding to the new normal. Thierry Henrot.
Thank you, Patrick, for this lovely introduction, and hello to everyone. Obviously, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Let me share my screen where I can show you the presentation I prepared about this lovely subject. Obviously, let's crack on directly on this subject. And during my 10 minutes that I was allowed, I will go through 5 main concerns. And as you can understand, a people business like hotels, what we are living now and what we are going through is obviously a great challenge on how we can continue to create memories for our guests. So this where it comes to all the innovation and creativity that we have come and we have to develop. So let me go through the first topic, which is the fact that this cleaning and sanitation is now the top priority when choosing and staying in hotels. I remember a few months back, the first question from our guests were around checkout times, restaurant offerings, or what kind of spa treatments we would be allowed to do. Now they are more concerned on how do we clean rooms. And that's already a huge shift that comes to our day-to-day business, and all the brands were forced to create in a flash time new protocols based on learnings from hospitals and health experts to really develop a new cleaning and new sanitation protocols that has to be in place and implemented on a daily basis. Obviously, we have to see that every guest journey, that consistency and the rigor of these protocols are key. And the balance is also very crucial to make sure that we are not appearing as a hospital, that we still have to continue on being a place where we continue connections and interact and create memories. This mindset shift has a massive impact of our day-to-day hospitality. Nevertheless, challenges are seen as opportunities. Our second main topic is obviously social distancing. The 2 meters that has as a measurement, especially in Portugal as a government, is significant for both hoteliers and guests. Interaction and engagements are some of the key elements, as you know, of the travel experience. However, in that new normals, hoteliers have to find ways to deliver that customer experience in a hygienic yet human way. Another consequence of the COVID is that space itself has become part of the definition of luxury, by which I mean is being able to maintain the personal space, enjoy a sense of having space, privacy. And those 2 words, space and privacy, has to become also part of every interaction, service and product that we have to create in terms of the services that we are putting in place or adapting the normal servicing that hotels has to do. That has to come in a way that we have to find the right balance in those government measures, in the protocols that the hotels or brands are putting in place, and making sure that we keep the focus always as also Sheree mentioned very well, is to continue to create the great memories that we have to put in the customer service. My topic number 3 is in terms of how we have to adapt operational protocols. One of them, which I mentioned earlier, is in terms of the space, and in this case, the space I want to talk about is more the space in time. I personally, I'm very proud to be in Portugal. I'm very proud to see that the government is very strict in terms of the measurements that we have to put in place in public spaces and also in all the establishments. We have to make sure that we respect those measurements. We have to be kind of the intermediaries and making sure that between the guests and our normal day-to-day service, we have to implement those in a very subtle but strict ways. Obviously, the Clean and Safe program has helped a lot to make sure that the communication is very, very throughout all the countries and all the disciplines. When I talk about space in time, I'm making sure that we have to find that balance of having the guests wearing their personal equipment, as we employees and hoteliers has to do, but making sure that behind our mask, we obviously continue to be the smiling face and welcoming face. Making sure that when we ask our guests to actually respect the distance, the social distancing protocol in terms of being 2 meters apart, this is already included in the service that we have to offer without being a barrier, but making sure that all these measurements and disciplines are put and respecting the personal and emotional space, what the guests want and need. The part of giving the guests time to relax is crucial in this moment. The second topics about the operational protocols is food and beverage. And we discussed earlier by Sheree that is still a main concern about how we can experience dining experience or going to a simple restaurant without worry too much about this moment. Obviously, the COVID-19 has turned thousands of restaurants virtual, literally overnight. And we have seen during the months of quarantine that many of us have enjoyed the takeaway options and also the delivery options. However, the luxury hospitality or hotels has to adapt their food and beverage and to making sure they also are kind of in line with what is the future of the food concept and industries. So I think personally, in a more personal opinion, I don't think the dining experience is at risk. However, I definitely think that adapting to a virtual concept is really what is on the book now, and obviously that's number 2 as a priority in terms of convenience, which is decided by our guests in terms of experience. However, it is very, very important that having a wider and probably a more distinct divide between the virtual and the dining experience in a more creative ways. The food and beverage is part of the daily services that all of us are using, and we want to continue in the luxury hospitality with a very traditional regards, however adapted to the circumstances. One of the other important subtopics is obviously spa. All of us have been kind of in standby for many months in terms of activities, and we have to rethought probably some of our routines. And for hotels who traditionally prioritize their revenue drivers, mainly rooms and food and beverage, and have a secondary revenue drivers like the spa. And this spa cannot be seen in the same way as they used to be. Definitely for the fact that the target audience of the spa has a different mindset, which we have to really consider, that launch a new adapted product and service focusing on how to give space again for our customers in those circumstances. Definitely think more locals and focusing definitely on the mental wellness, which is not necessarily a high position into of the spa activities that we can see nowadays. That's all those adaptations of the new spa industry is very important to make sure that we continue to have a very healthy audience and also a very healthy approach. My fourth subject is probably to complement a bit of the 5 stage of the travel recovery that has been mentioned earlier, but in more focusing on the hospitality. And in this case, we can identify 4 main phase and cycle. The first one, obviously, is when hotels are still closed, where we can do good and give hope. That's where we have seen many hotels making the difference in culture and communities, employees and customers' lives, with food donations, blood donations. Hotels have been used as hospitals or to isolate doctors and nurses during this crisis. Obviously, many of our hotels from our company has been doing this new discipline during these times. The second cycle is definitely drive local businesses, and where the international travel is still close and limited, and we need to build confidence and to show locals how we can revisit, and obviously talking more on our business here in Lisbon, is how we can make the locals rediscover Lisbon's in a different ways. The third cycle would be when the world travel again, but still people are hesitant, and therefore we need to sell explorations and inspire travel through all the confidence that we have shown on how we are ready to welcome travelers and how all the protocols are well in place, and obviously the interactions are priority number 1 in terms of hospitality. The final stage would be when things in terms of travels come back as a new normals and drive momentums and demonstrate leaderships is the moment where we will see new concepts which are definitely different of the traditional hospitality that we have seen even last year or 6 months ago. And that will be able to have special services and products that are adapted, focusing on this, what we have learned during this crisis, but also on driving momentum for the final clients. My last topics that I wanted to share is a result of a study that has been done by Marriott International about emerging trends post-COVID-19, sorry. And those 5 trends are about more or less in line with what Sheree has done with the road trips. But we can see that the first trend that is coming is the private experience. And this definitely shows that consumers will opt for a quality over quantity approach. And that probably swapping for more frequent travel, for fewer, better quality experience, and probably paying more premium and being more isolated and in a controlled environment. So those private experience will are key in the new trends. The second trends that we have seen is the luxury returns to exclusivity. And obviously, when we talk about exclusivity in this case and luxury, we're not talking about status or rarity. We're talking more in terms of privacy. So personal villas, private flights, remote locations, in an isolated place, where obviously the more fortunate among us will be able to pay a bit more for this kind of level of safety. The third trends that we already have seen in the past few months that probably many companies have transformed in digital in few weeks, that probably normally would take 2 years to put in place this kind of effort that they have put in the digital. But this will definitely continue in terms of all the companies and will accelerate, especially in the hospitality. We are not only talking about a simple QR code that we can see in a restaurant where you can see your menu, but also companies has developed masterclass that you can see from famous chefs that hotels has probably broadcast. You can see that museums have organized virtual tours, and all those artifacts that has been put in place in terms of digital transformations has definitely increased customer satisfactions and increased the loyalty for that brands. The fourth trend is reset mindset. And obviously in the middle of that coronavirus crisis, many of us has turned to nature to reduce stress levels, improve our mental health, and stay physically active. So connecting with nature has been a new trend. A sense of freedoms will definitely be a huge part in the near future. And finally, strong brands win. That's we know that the power of a strong brands, making sure that adapting product and services, putting it relevant and genuine, defining that point of difference and making sure that people know. For example, I've read and I've seen a very interesting subject that has happened on the USP that Eurotunnel has obviously put in place. Eurotunnel is not new, as we know, but the fact that promoting now the normal France to UK in driving your own car, being in your own space, but making sure you can go from A to B without actually exiting your own space and your own bubble. And that has been a huge USP for Eurotunnels. And now, probably with the same services that they had for many, many years, have managed to really redevelop and readapt that USP in a more appealing and relevant way. And that's where probably the brands will definitely adapt their audiences and messages. That was what I was able to actually tell you in terms of hospitality and how I can see that we are kind of passing through. So big thank you to all. Thank you all, and Patrick, back to you.
Thank you so much, Thierry, for showing us how the pandemic has changed really fundamentally how you manage the luxury hotel business to meet new needs, both to attract and to serve your customers. A very, very interesting approach. I'm delighted to introduce our third speaker, Gavin Eccles, who will present another industry, but obviously an integral element of tourism, particularly to Portugal, the aviation industry. Gavin is one of the world's experts in aviation. He's done everything. He's a consultant and a professor who's worked across the world to make the link between aviation and tourism development. He has had extensive experience with airlines, airports, and tourism boards. He's occupied many positions, including CCO at the Portuguese airline SATA Azores Airlines. He's acted as a consultant to and developed projects for British Airways, United Airlines, American Airlines, and Qantas. And Gavin has supported the development also of low-cost carriers to various tourist destinations. Gavin has also been the advisor to national and regional tourist boards to support their route development and work with international airports to understand how to attract airlines and incentivize them to develop routes. Incidentally, of course, among his many accomplishments, Gavin is also currently Professor of Aviation at Lisbon University in Portugal. So Gavin, you bring this incredible experience and we are absolutely thrilled to have you as a speaker here. And I understand you're going to speak to us about behind the scenes. Let us look at the behind the scenes, look at the airline industry today. Gavin Eccles.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Sheree. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So how can I try to give an overview of, in 10 minutes, of where is the global aviation industry and try and give my views and opinions. I think we all know really what happened at the end of March. If we look here, the blue line is what we call revenue per kilometer. So this is how airlines measure what we are selling. And the red line was looking at GDP. To be honest, what we were hoping that actually in 2020, it would be one of the first years that aviation would actually see a growth more than the GDP contributions of countries. Obviously that has fallen off a cliff. And we're in this kind of not knowing when will the industry be back. And I'll try to highlight a little bit about what can bring the industry back and give my opinions. But, you know, we've talked about U curves, V curves, bathtub curves. There's all sorts of ways that people are trying to understand just how is the future in relation to getting airlines back up and running. If you look, have we not been here before? For those of us who've worked in trade for tourism for, you know, over the last 10, 15 years, we've had multiple events that have brought aviation and tourism to the ground. If we look here from the UNWTO, SARS, not that huge impact in Europe, obviously very much in Asia. They said it took about 5 months to get growth back following SARS. September the 11th, obviously we all know, and I was in British Airways at the day when I came back down from Glasgow on a flight to London, and to see all American Airline and BA planes parked at Heathrow, I think we all felt that that was the end of flying. And you obviously know what then went on, and the industry's boomed for multiple years following September the 11th, but it took there around 6 months to bring our industry back. If we take the global crisis, which was probably the last, it was a little bit longer, around 10 months before the industry started to see some pickup. People don't know. I think the challenge with this crisis is we just don't know. I think if we look back, the way to get out of these crises was through promotion and certainly through price dumping. Airlines were able to get people back on planes through showing that they were safe, but separately really putting prices low. I don't see that at the moment, and we'll talk a little bit later about that. I don't see price as being the reason that people might travel, and that's something we really haven't seen before. In all of the doom and gloom, there are some offshoots of recovery. The green line is the average here. This is what we would call aviation capacity. So the schedules that are posted in the flight systems for the global aviation industry. You can obviously see back at it was really March when finally the US went into lockdown that we really took the brunt of aviation between Europe, Asia, and America, nothing happening. I think we all felt that probably when was rock bottom, and from the point of view of schedules, it was end of April was when we actually saw the last point of parking aircraft. Since April, interestingly, we've started to rapidly bring aviation back to the skies. Obviously, that's capacity. That does not mean demand. If I mirrored that to today, and we're looking from yesterday, week 31, through to week 36, we're talking about just under 50% of the aviation capacity globally is to be reinstated. That means by the end of August, you will see airlines back to where they would like to try and be. And you even saw yesterday TAP saying that they'll be bringing around 40 to 50% back by the end of September. So it's mirroring the situation that airlines need to get aircraft back in the skies. We can't leave aircraft parked in commercial airports. It's we don't have space, and it's also very dangerous to leave aircraft under conditions of humidity, etc., the damage to the wings and the engines. So obviously airlines need to get their flights back up. If I take this yellow line through to the end of the summer, so we call it the end of October, probably we will be back to around 60-65% of capacity reinstated. I would say load factor, which is the numbers of seats that are occupied, probably about 20 percentage points below capacity. So you're probably talking around somewhere between 60 to 65% of the airlines flying their flight planes with a load factor somewhere around 45-50%. That's not good, obviously, but it's better than where we were if you'd have talked to airlines back in April. Very simply, airline economics in 1 second. We talk about load factor, which is the amount of demand. And as I said, at the moment, we're talking about load factors, hopefully by the end of summer, to be below 50%. The average load factor across the world is around 80%, and a low-cost airline would be looking for about 90 to 92%. So even though we might be getting closer to putting the capacity back, it's the demand that we need to understand. Yield, for obviously Thierry from the hotels, it's what he would also be looking at. How much do we make per seat? And that's the willingness for people to pay. You put those two together and we have simply revenue available seat kilometer. That's what drives an airline. Where are we today? Unfortunately, all of the three barometers are miserably down. Load factor is down because obviously people are scared to travel. Yield is down because airlines are reluctant to try to place high prices when they know there's very limited load factor. But what they're not doing is major discounting. There's no sense in discounting just at these months, because you don't have any new, or the demand is not coming in line with the capacity. So you're just dumping if you were to put out a price campaign now. So we're not actually seeing a decrease in yield per se on the basis that prices are falling, but as we're not seeing as many people on the aircraft and we're not selling as many tickets, by default, our yield is dropping, which means that our revenue is also falling. It's confidence to get, and that's obviously, it'll come through in presentations and Sheree's work and showing that you've got to get people back out there and telling people that it is okay to be traveling. But at this stage, it's confidence what we need. There are two models, and linking this to Portugal, obviously we talk about airlines that work on the left side, on my left side, point to point. This would be the low-cost model where you'd be flying, let's say, Lisbon, London, Lisbon, Madrid. And the benefit here is that you're doing Lisbon, London, London, Lisbon, Lisbon, Madrid, Madrid, Lisbon, and you're serving multiple cities in a very easy way. That's a model very much played out by the low cost. And if you look at Portugal with the work that's been done with Ryanair, EasyJet, these airlines can get their schedules back up quickly and they can start moving people around. Obviously, it's unfortunate that, you know, Ireland and the UK have put Portugal out of the corridor. I'm sure that will change very, very soon. But obviously the airlines like Aer Lingus, Ryanair, EasyJet were all ready to ramp up their schedules and actually are still flying from the point-to-point. So low-cost airlines at the moment are really finding it easy to get back. And Algarve, Madeira, where there's been a lot of low-cost development, they can quickly see penetration. And of course, Porto as well, with Ryanair and EasyJet's projects in the north, you start to see, interestingly, a capacity back quickly. The other side is this model of hub and spoke. And obviously we have here in Lisbon, the Lisbon hub and TAP, and with the American situation, it is not so easy. And we have to be honest here. Airlines like TAP, airlines like Lufthansa, KLM, Air France, American Airlines, British Airways, they haven't been able to ramp up their schedules anything like the low-cost airlines because they're reliant on traffic moving between the different lengths of the journey, the same as Emirates, obviously in a different scale, but in relation to the Dubai hub. And the challenge with these hub airports and hub airlines is, when can we start bringing the two legs of the journey back together? Because whilst we only have one side of that journey, we're obviously competing with the low cost on the point to point. So airlines had kind of gone two separate ways. They'd focused on point to point, hubbing, bringing international clients between 2 or 3 gateways over a hub, or a point to point strategy. And if I highlight this very quickly, and it looks a bit complicated, but if I take American Airlines in 2019, on 20 of the country pairs that are presently restricted, that would be, let's say, US, Mexico, US, UK, US, Portugal, that represented around 2% of the total revenue of American Airlines in 2019. But those 20 country pairs represented 67% of the international revenue of American. So you can see straight away, whilst Mexico is closed, whilst Canada is closed, whilst Lisbon, Portugal is closed, whilst the UK is closed, an airline like American Airlines is suffering badly on the be able to get revenue on the through. It's actually the same if I mirror that to British Airways and look at their situation. They have 1% of their top country pairs restricted, but 1% of British Airways' top 20 routes are 56% of their total revenue in 2019. So you can see straight away that the legacy airlines cannot continue to have closed borders, and the cash burn that these airlines are going through whilst planes cannot be moving from A to B to C is, it's not that they're losing out to the low cost, because the low cost is not taking this project either. The low cost is point to point. So what you're ending up here is a model where low costs are coming very quick. And in the US, that would be Frontier, Allegiant, Southwest, Spirit, JetBlue. They're all putting their schedules back very, very quickly. It's American, Delta, and United that are struggling. And here again, as I've said in Europe, it's EasyJet, Ryanair, and Wizz Air that are booming in their schedule. And it's the likes of BA America, BA Lufthansa, and Air France that are struggling to get everything back up. Just to kind of bring it a little bit closer to home, what might happen next? This year, I don't think we will see mergers and consolidation. I think it's too early. I think if we look at the bailouts that have now happened, 8 to 10 billion for Lufthansa, KLM, Air France, 1.5 billion here in Portugal, the UK the same with British Airways. I think it's too early for countries to, or for airlines to say, how do we get together? I think one of the regulations, as you probably would know, if we look at the bilaterals between Europe and the United States, we can only own 49% of each other's companies. If United Airlines would like to start buying a European airline, or a European airline buying an American airline company or merging, maybe we need to start looking at the bilaterals and how the ownership of aviation would need to change to allow a merger of some of these major partners. There's talk about will Emirates merge with Etihad in the Middle East? So I think not yet, because obviously whilst we're going through this next phase, things will, but I think come 2021, I think there will be some consolidation. Very quickly to finish, it's quite simple what's happened during the last few months. We're going to see 3 types of flight experience in the next years. We're going with the small, what we call single aisle A320 Boeing 737 projects, mainly used by the low-cost airline companies, flying around 2 to 5 hours, 150 to 190 passengers. And then we've got on the, forget the red, just one second, but the 2 later lines, we're moving to the, what we call the wide body A330 787 project, 7 to 12 hours obviously very much what TAP's been doing with North America, 260 to 300 seats. And then the really big 350 777s that can go as long as 14, 15, even 16 hours, taking up to 400 people. Gone are the A340s, gone are the 767s, gone are the 757s, gone are the 747s. Also, the A380s are going out. It's time for a real shake-up. The real opportunity and something that for Portugal, and it's something that's being looked at, is this mid-project in the middle. How can we start to look at flying what you used to call long haul, but now you can do it with a single aisle aircraft? What is coming out of Toulouse with Airbus on the A321 long range, and hopefully what Airbus can do, what Boeing can do out of Seattle with the MAX and get the MAX 10 back in the air. What that gives us is, if you take Portugal here, you can basically, with these new aircraft, cover parts of the world that you would not normally be doing because you would have too many seats and the aircraft will be too expensive. This opens up Americans playing golf in Florida, Canadians taking winter retreats in Madeira. This is game changer. For Portugal, this is a huge opportunity. And if you look in pre-COVID, American Airlines have ordered 50 of these aircraft. Delta have ordered 50. United have ordered 30. Even JetBlue have ordered, I think, 18. And Frontier, the low cost out of Denver, has also put an order of 15 and wants to start flying to Europe. So in all the doom and gloom, there are some, hopefully, slight opportunities as we move through. So without a doubt, I will pass back and pick up any questions later in the chat.
Thank you, Gavin, for that very clear explanation of what is obviously an extraordinarily difficult industry today, as are all those we're going to be dealing with. We are honored to have, I guess, as a special guest, Luís Araújo, the President of Tourism de Portugal, the Portuguese National Tourism Authority. He's been president since February of 2016. And he will clearly bring to us the perspective of the government of a country which has so heavily relied on tourism to promote growth. Luís has a degree in law, has been involved in tourism throughout his career, principally with the major Portuguese hotel chain Grupo Pestana, where he occupied senior executive positions, including in Latin America. He's previously served the Portuguese government already as head of the cabinet of the Portuguese Secretary of State for Tourism between 2005 and 2007, after which he returned to Grupo Pestana as a board member, responsible for human resources, communication and marketing, IT, and central purchases, as well as new projects in South America. He's also, interestingly, been head of the sustainability effort for the group since the creation of that department in 2009. Luís brings his broad international experience in tourism to his central role in promoting tourism on behalf of the government in Portugal. And we are really proud and delighted that he's been kind enough to take time from his busy schedule to participate in our live talk. So Luís will speak to us about the future of tourism in Portugal. Thank you, Luís.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Sheree, and thank you, Juan, from the American Club, for the invitation. Very, very good to be here, and great to listen to Thierry and Gavin, and surely Mario and Sheree. Well, talk about future. We can't talk about future without talking about the past, especially in Portugal. First of all, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit in the dark, because I would rather you to see the blue sky in Lisbon and not my face. So I'm sorry about that, but I hope it will convince a few of you to come to Portugal. Let's talk about the past. Portugal grew its revenues in 4 years, 60%, 60. We came from 11 billion euros a year to 18.4 in 4 years. We grew in the entire country. The regions which were less touristic were the ones who grew more. We had the lowest seasonality rate in 2019 ever, the lowest one inside Europe, which is really amazing. We were growing January and February, double digits. Revenues, guests, tourists, we hit a record last year with 27 million tourists, which was everything was going smoothly. So suddenly we were hit by the biggest wave in the world. We're proud to say that we have the biggest wave in the world in Nazaré for surfing, but this one was even bigger. And this was when everyone tells us that this is a health crisis or economic crisis or financial crisis, we always say that in the tourism sector, it's a trust crisis. It's a crisis of people feeling enough confidence to travel or to leave their own country or to leave their home. And you can only do this, and I would love to talk about the future, and not only about Portugal, because I think this is not a problem just of one destination. This is an entire world destination problem. And you can only do this with three very simple things. The first thing is transparency, and you can only build trust based on transparency. Portugal has been committed in sharing their results, its results on how well they're behaving and how well we're controlling the pandemic. We had very clear rules since the beginning. And there's one thing about the Portuguese and Portugal that I'm sure many of you know. We comply with the rules. And if we need to do something, we respect that if we understand that it's for our own sake. And to answer one of your question, Sheree, if tourists are complying, of course they are, because we ask them to comply. We're very, we don't invade each other's space in Portugal, but we hope that people that come to us respect our way of living and what we are doing and the effort we are doing to control this global crisis. So I would say that first we need transparency, and hopefully for the future, this transparency will be very clear for any country. For sure, for Portugal, it will be. The second thing is about responsibility. And you asked Sheree previously about the clean and safe stamp. It's a very simple idea. It's based on responsibility from the public entities. We partnered with the Minister of Health for hoteliers and rent-a-cars and golf courses that needed to know what the customer needed and what we needed to do to prevent the spreading. And we told them, these are the rules, these are the protocols. So if you comply, you just have to say you comply. And what we do now is we do audits. Independent audits by different governmental agencies to these establishments. We have done more than 20,000 establishments, as I told you, from Airbnb to hotels to rent-a-car to travel agents, anything, golf courses. And from today, we have 4 venues and events. So any event that any organizer wants to organize in Portugal has specific rules. Very clear rules, and I think that's the most important right now. And this is based also in responsibility from the entity that says they will comply. We launched a platform, a digital platform. I don't know if you know, but Portugal is the country in the world that has more innovative solutions in fighting against COVID. It's not us who says, it's the OECD. We have almost 10% of the total solutions in the world, of the 430 solutions that the OECD has compiled. Portugal has almost 10% of it, much more than the United States, England, France, Spain, Germany. And what we always say is that this responsibility comes also from the person who goes to those places. So in this platform, you can evaluate any establishment in Portugal, saying if they comply or they don't comply with the clean and safe stamp. You just have to press the green, yellow, and red button. If you press the red, we will do an audit immediately. So this is how we think things should be done, based on responsibility. This is the perfect environment to do this, because we're a small country, very diverse, very easy to go from one place to the other. And I have to tell you, companies are prepared. We've been giving more than training to more than 60,000 people in the entire country on digital basis during these 4 months. And this is how eager companies and workers in the tourism sector are to welcome again all the tourists. And the third thing, which I think is crucial to build trust, is the experience. We still want anyone that comes to Portugal to have the same experience they had previously. We're talking about different needs, but we're committed on that. We're committing that the experience in Portugal is a seamless experience, from mobility to communication, to information, to payments. We're committed on doing that for any person that comes to Portugal, not only for the locals, but especially for tourists. That's why the Innovation Center is very much focused. We're working with lots of startups, and we just launched yesterday the program, we call it Fostering Innovation in Tourism, to find new solutions in Portugal to deal with this seamless experience from people from other countries. So these three things for us are crucial: transparency, authenticity in the experience, and responsibility. I think Portugal, in terms of tourism, we're open. Every part of the country is open. Madeira, you have to do, I was in Madeira this weekend. It was an incredible experience. You need to do the test in advance. Otherwise, you do it at the airport. I did it at the airport. It took me half an hour to do the test, leave the airport with my luggage, go to the hotel, wait for the result, and I had the result the next morning immediately. So this is what is important, focusing on what people need. And by people, we said, of course, tourists, but we also are talking about the residents, and we talk about, especially about our companies and the workers, the 400,000 workers, almost 10% of the population in Portugal that work for tourism. So surely we will keep doing this and strengthening this path against the COVID. And that's something we would really love to say to the world. This is not just a Portugal problem. If you have countries building walls and saying that you can travel or you can't travel based on criteria that no one understands, and decision taken from one day to the other, you're not going to end the COVID. You're not going to end the pandemic. You're just going to destroy an entire economy. And as Gavin pointed out very clearly, this is not just a problem for Portugal. It's for the entire world, for many travel agents in the UK, in the US, in many other countries and tour operators that need these to survive. So we're committed on this. And we think, we always said that we have, and we always had a strong purpose, which is welcoming everyone that comes to Portugal and respecting the differences. And we say that this is the time to do that in the entire world. It's not just in Portugal, it's in the entire world. So I hope you have a wonderful trip through Portugal, Sheree. I know the results of how prepared Portugal is for tourism sector. I will be there to listen, for sure. But gladly, we would welcome everyone again. We're sure that this will pass very soon. And I think we need clear communication and clear information from everyone. Once again, transparency, authenticity, and responsibility is the only way to build trust. And we're at Tourism of Portugal, we're committed with that. So thank you once again, Patrick. Back to you.
Thank you, Luís. And I cannot imagine anyone who would be more capable to manage the Portuguese government's efforts to promote tourism than Luís Araújo. And I know that I speak for the industry in appreciating your contribution to their efforts. Let us pass on to a somewhat different look at the problems we have dealing with education. So last but certainly not least, I have the pleasure to introduce Mario Chessa, who is Executive Director of NOVA, one of the great universities in Portugal, hospitality and tourism platform, as well as managing partner of Chessa Connect. Mario is a passionate marketer who's covered senior executive leadership roles in the sales and marketing field, both in the hospitality and nautical industry. Working for companies such as Starwood and the Ferretti Group, he developed a strong expertise in cross-industry marketing partnerships in the luxury segment. His focus on innovative marketing channels has led him to connect industries for the purpose of enhancing brand visibility, revenue growth, and market penetration. He helps helps companies develop strategic business relationships that expand networking capabilities and present new distribution channels, generating top-line sales growth and secure marketing edge. With nearly 25 years of experience, Mario is a specialist in the hospitality and luxury industries. He's currently spearheading Nova's hospitality and tourism platform with the objective to bring Nova's knowledge and capability in the field of education and applied research to the hospitality and tourism business environment. Mario has chosen to address us on the subject of preparing the next generation of tourism leaders in challenging times. So we're honored to have you here. Thank you so much, Mario.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Patrick. Thank you, Sheree, as well, and obviously Patrick for the invitation. Honored to be here amongst all of you. Actually, I think we all have something in common, despite the fact that Luís is the only Portuguese national here, is the love for Portugal. I think that goes without saying. Thanks also to all the participants that are attending and for bearing with me as I'm the last one on the call. I would like to start on a little emotional note, basically. I was first in Portugal, or lived first in Portugal in the early 90s. It was a very different country at that time, but foremost when it came to tourism, I would travel the world promoting the hotel Sheraton Algarve at the time, which we just opened, saying Portugal is the best kept secret. Well, as a matter of fact, I don't think you can repeat that statement today, but yet it still has some secrets and we should exploit it. So again, compliments to Luís and what has been achieved by Tourism Portugal in the last years, because it's really, really phenomenal. Now, having said that, the advantage of being the last one talking is also that I can tap into what everybody has been saying. And I'm immediately going to make the link to our project at Nova, which is basically called the Nova Hospitality and Tourism Institute. What exactly is the Nova Hospitality and Tourism Institute? It's basically leveraging the knowledge and the capabilities that are available at the university and its different faculties, whether it's social sciences, whether it's science and technology, whether it's the business school, and saying, how can we connect that knowledge and those capabilities and bridge that to the needs of the business world, in particular related to hospitality and tourism. And there's two areas of focus that we have identified, which are basically two areas of focus of any university, which is education and applied research. So Nova is not a tourism school. We all know that. Nova is a university with different faculties. But we saw a tremendous opportunity in saying, hey, with what's happening today in the world, and particularly in the field of hospitality and tourism, is there any way that we can transfer and we can work with partners, whether they're public or private partners, to transfer that knowledge, those capabilities, whether it's in the field of education or applied research to the sectors and to the market needs, so to say. So we decided basically to create a number of what we call virtual labs. So we decided to identify some of the themes which we thought are today the most actual ones in the tourism industry. Digital transformation being one of them, the other one being sustainability, health innovation, heritage, gastronomy and nutrition, and as well marketing innovation. So what's the purpose of having created those labs? Well, it basically is simply looking into what the market needs are when it comes to the tourism sector and say, okay, we have knowledge, and I'd rather give a few examples to sort of get away from the theory. We have knowledge in the field of digital transformation. I think more than ever with the COVID situation, you know, everybody talks about customer interaction and how to a certain extent, certain things have to be replaced by digital capabilities. Well, we as a university, on the one hand, are trying to develop programs together with other partners to address these issues in courses, executive education courses, but also make that knowledge available for those partners. And again, whether they're public entities or private entities, to say, hey, are there fields where we can be of help in developing the digital transformation, in bettering the digital transformation, because we do have that knowledge. And how can we do that in combination with different departments of the university? We have social sciences where we have specialists in heritage. Now, you all know people that are anthropologists might not be the most commercial persons, and this is not a criticism, this is just factual. Well, can we leverage on their knowledge to basically transfer that into an asset for the tourism industry, because they're knowledgeable about what the patrimonium is of this country. Can we connect the dots by having them working on projects that creates visibility for the heritage, the untapped heritage, so to say, in a country like Portugal? So there's all these different, and that's why, hence, we call it an interdisciplinary platform. There's all these aspects combined, all the diversity that we want to bring to the market, both in the form of applied research and education. Now, when it comes to education specifically, which is also the title of my little intervention here, I think the tourism and hospitality industry is characterized by, you know, a panorama in the world of very good schools that give, on the one hand, very technical and operational education. An example of that are the 12 schools by Tourism Portugal, which are located throughout the country. But we were questioning the fact that there might be an opportunity to add on to what is already the current education in tourism and hospitality. And how to do that again was by saying, okay, which are the recurrent themes where people need to be knowledgeable, and perhaps they're not really, because it's not part of the usual hospitality and tourism curriculum when it comes to education. Taking as an example a theme such as sustainability, I think this is all being accelerated even more by COVID. In the field of sustainability today, if you want to be a hotel manager or somebody leading, you know, a tourist organization, you have to be knowledgeable about sustainability. It's no longer about your traditional knowledge of the sector. It's also about these kind of themes. You know, how can I better plan and strategize, you know, sustainability aspects of a country, of a private entity such as a hotel. Also because in the perception of the customer, sustainability becomes incredibly important, and more important than it has ever been. So again, we're looking into this, partnering up also with private partners to say, okay, what are your needs in that field, and how can we compose educational programs in the field of sustainability? Along those lines, again, we're looking into the opportunity as to what can we do from a sustainability point of view. We're also partnering up with Tourism Portugal and Luís's team to say, for instance, okay, are there specific sustainability projects that you would want us to look into as a university in terms of research, because we can perhaps help building a carbon neutral footprint for the hotel industry in Portugal, and so forth and so on. So without giving further examples, that's the spirit of the hospitality and tourism platform. The other element when it comes to education is also related to the fact that today, people that work in the tourism industry need to be more and more all-rounders. They need to be knowledgeable. I touched upon it previously, but they need to be knowledgeable about things that go beyond, you know, the P&L of a hotel, you know, the projections from a financial point of view. They need to be knowledgeable about what's going on when we talk about digital transformation, what's going on when we talk about sustainability, what's going on in terms of the applications that are available to enhance the customer interactions, and so forth and so on. So we can draw a long list of these things. So again, in an effort to bring this all together, we've also decided to launch, which will be next year, a PhD in hospitality and tourism, where we will differentiate ourselves from the current competitive set, I would say, is by saying, okay, everybody that is interested in hospitality and tourism and would want to do a PhD, we give him a first semester of a full-rounded overview of all these aspects that are important to hospitality and tourism. Ultimately, they will choose one of those subjects supported by a corporate partner or a public partner, will then, you know, finish his curriculum for the PhD. So a lot of things going on. We're in a very, you know, initial stage of the platform. Hence, we haven't officially launched it yet. It will happen after the summer. So from a marketing point of view, I can't wait, being a marketeer myself, to start talking about it. So you're getting a little prelude to what is going to happen. But ultimately, I was very pleased to hear about this live chat also, and obviously having the opportunity to talk to it, because I think there is so much and so many other industries that are connected to hospitality and tourism, and hospitality and tourism as an industry itself very often overlooks its potential for other industries. And what I'm trying to say by that is that and again, that is why the word platform is very appropriate. When, as a country, you know, you promote a destination, there's so many aspects that go with the promotion of the destination. I heard Luís mentioning a couple of times authenticity. Well, there's a lot of authenticity in Portugal. So what about having, you know, the gastronomy sector working, and I'm not saying it's not happening yet, but enhancing that even more, working with the hospitality and tourism sector? What about from a material point of view, you know, what are the options to do things with the industry that produces cork and so forth and so on? So at the end of the day, in very simple English, it's about connecting the dots also between hospitality and tourism and other industries that can leverage upon hospitality and tourism. So in terms of pipeline of activities, there's a lot of work in progress, but the first initiatives that will take place until the end of the year will be a form of webinars with the specific goal also to have roundtable sessions where people can literally say, okay, these are our needs from an educational point of view. In first instance, when it comes to hospitality and tourism, this is where, you know, our senior management, possibly our middle management as well, would need to be updated on specific subjects. And the same is going to happen in terms of the innovation labs when it comes to understanding what kind of applied research and knowledge we can transfer to the hospitality and tourism business world. I know we're already a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Again, a big thank you to everybody, and obviously I'm totally available for the Q&A, which is coming up. So over to Patrick again, and thanks again.
Okay, thank you very much, Mario, for that very interesting and different perspective. I'm looking at some of the questions. I have a question, and I see Nevin Weiner from our board, the American Club Board, has pretty much the same question. He phrases it as, what guidelines are in place or recommended in order to screen hotels, airlines, restaurants, etc., personnel to be sure they are uninfected with coronavirus? And it raises me a somewhat broader question, which I address to, I guess, Luís, Thierry, and Gavin, all three, is to what degree do companies, hotels, airlines need to get involved into the testing business? You know, I don't understand why there's not much more emphasis on testing. I would love to fly to Paris, to fly to France to visit my sister. I would like to have, you know, if the airline could tell me that everybody on the airline has been tested, I would feel confident to go there. If I wanted to stay in a hotel, I would want to know that every person that I'm going to encounter has been tested and doesn't have the virus. And I do not understand why companies and governments haven't emphasized much more testing. I know that some testing takes too long and becomes irrelevant because it's so long, but there are tests that are efficient and relatively short term. Do you think that companies, airlines, hotels are going to get into the medical business? Right now you measure temperature, are you going to have to do much more? And should governments promote this kind of work? So I don't know, Thierry, you want to start, and then maybe Luís and Gavin?
Indeed, that's obviously a great question, and that was a main concern when we reopen our hotels and making sure that we obviously do everything to protect our employees and our guests. I definitely wish that the testing will be definitely implemented in a broader aspect. For the time being, measuring temperature for our employees and making sure by having strict process in terms of washing hands in a correct manners in a very frequent time and being supervised in all process, that's how we can definitely conduct that confidence that we are respecting. But definitely the testing will give that probably more formal aspect of positivity for the guest. Maybe I'll let Luís complementing my answer.
Yes, that's a very good question. We're seeing some destinations doing that already. Madeira is a very good example, and the Azores. Testing, we have to see that things move very quickly, and what previously seemed very difficult, like testing, and very expensive, is going to very low test costs, like 40 to 50 euros one test, and special techniques that are being discovered. I'll give you an example. In the Algarve, the University of Algarve just started last month a new procedure in terms of testing, which is called the pool testing. And even the United States and United Kingdom, imagine, Great Britain, is consulting the university in the Algarve to understand how they do it. And it's very simple. They merge 10 people or 10 tests from 10 people, and they do one single test. If it turns negative, then everyone is free and they can go to their own life. If it turns positive, they do the same test to those 10 people to understand where is the chain and who is infected. This multiplies by 10 the ability to do testing in a population, of course. And it's a very simple procedure. Even Portimão in the Algarve, they will start doing that to every employee in the hotel or the restaurant business. Every 15 days, all employees will be tested. So I think we will see much more of this coming. Once again, it's based on transparency. You can't do the testing and then say that nothing happens. You have to say that it happened, where it happened, and what you're doing to prevent it spreading. That's the only way to do it. And second, you have to do it in a coordinated approach. But I go to the beginning of what I said. It's based on responsibility. And for many tests that you do, if you get in a place where someone is infected because they're not responsible, or they don't behave according to the rules of that country, then you have a chain which is broken. But I think we will see, and we will be talking much more about testing and how safe different region, different deal, if they have their own testing, for sure.
Gavin, you think the airlines are going to go into the testing business? Turn on your speaker, turn on your speaker. You're mute, you're still on mute, Gavin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emirates tried, really, at the start of the pandemic. Emirates did some testing on a flight to Tunisia. If you speak to IATA, the governing body, they say a plane is probably the safest place in the world at the moment with the air conditioning system. You know, we've had this debate about the middle seat, and Southwest is still not selling a middle seat. That's not the same here in Europe with the low-cost airlines. We are selling all of our capacity. So the airlines are a little bit more worried about how to get people on and off the aircraft. You know, that's the worry at the moment, the whole boarding procedure. You know, the olden days, you boarded first. Now you board last. You know, you board from the back. So I can't see the airlines, you know, they're trying to highlight that things are safe pretty much when you're on board the aircraft. It's the airports where the airlines have been looking for help. And if you look at some of the Middle East, particularly Abu Dhabi, they've done a lot of work in the way that they put science inside the airport to change the experience. But I can't see it with the cash burn that they're going through at the moment. I don't think they can afford to go into the medical business.
Okay, we have a question for Luís. How long do you think major Portuguese-owned hotels can afford the situation, can stay alive? Do you have any data on that? And you know, what are the risks that you see short term?
Well, of course, it all depends on the hotelier, depends on the region of the country. And once again, it depends on a lot of externalities. We're too much dependent on what happens in the entire world. How the situation evolves in other countries. Our main focus now, and I think that's what's been happening in Portugal, is giving companies and tourism companies enough ability to survive and to be in the front row to start running when they have the go. What we do see, and Gavin is very aware of that, is the connectivity is restarting again. So we have roughly 30 to 40% of seat capacity back to Portugal in July, and between 50 to 60% in August, which is very good for the 5 airports in Portugal. But once again, they have to come full. The load factor has to be high, and we know how that depends on different situations. But hopefully, we see a lot of some pickup, and we know we have areas of Portugal like the Algarve, which is in the middle of the summer, and it's their very high season. So we're very committed in trying to have as much occupancy as possible in those areas.
Okay, I see that we've gone to 1832, and we started at 5:03. So I have 1 minute to complete this live talk. You know, thank you so much, panelists. What a stimulating, interesting presentation. And Sheree, thank you so much for choosing a panel that is diverse and brings new light on this enormously important industry with its many different sides. I know that I echo the sentiments of everyone to say really, truly, thank you for each of the speakers. I want also to thank the audience. Thank you for participating. I know that many of you participated directly on the Zoom link, but we also will have this seminar, this live talk available. It was streamed live on our Facebook page, the American Club of Lisbon Facebook page, and it will continue to be there. So for anyone who missed it or missed part of it, you listen to it there. And I have to give special thanks to Immersa Global and their founder and CEO, Sheree, who produced this event. She put it together, this outstanding panel of speakers. It's thanks to you, Sheree, with your usual precision and efficiency, but also with your resplendent smile, without forgetting your contribution as speaker and co-host of this presentation. Thank you, really. We all thank you very much, Sheree. So you've set the standard very high. I can only hope that we will be able to meet it in the coming American Club of Lisbon live talks. We intend to approach other subjects starting in the fall. And so I will take my glass, and to end the session, I propose a toast to the tourism industry worldwide, to our speakers, to Sheree, and to the tourism industry in Portugal, the country that we all love. Thank you so much for participating. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.